Okay, next. Heritage Trail wayfinding markers. This is a design commission application. And here's another name I could mess up. Diana Prado and Natalie Armstrong from the Alliance. If I mispronounce your names, I apologize. And you can introduce yourselves properly and start with your presentation on what's before us.
Great. Thanks so much, Paul. I'm Taina Prado from the Downtown Alliance. And as you mentioned, I'm joined by Natalie Armstrong. She's our manager of public spaces and streetscape. Natalie's going to share her screen and share some slides that I will she and I will talk a little bit about as we run through this presentation. So we're here tonight to present our Wayfinding and Heritage Trail Marker project. I want to start a little bit with some history. Next, Natalie, on the slide. Great. So I wanted to start a little bit of with a little bit of history. This project consists of two parts: the Heritage Trail markers and the smaller wayfinding plaques and columns along Broadway. Firstly, the Heritage Trail markers, as you can see here, were erected in the mid-90s with the Heritage Trails New York, which was a public history project that was affiliated, not with the Alliance, it was a separate project, separate program. In 2000, the Alliance took over the maintenance and responsibility of these markers from the city DOT to avoid the markers being removed. The markers serve two purposes, as a wayfinding platform with the maps, and also provide historical information. I mean, at that time in 2000, the markers were in serious jeopardy of being removed, and the Alliance leadership thought it was very important to do our best to try to keep them, because we felt they were an important piece of the neighborhood's history and fought for the city, many times with the respective agencies over a few administrations to keep them. At that time, there were 39 Heritage Trail markers, and the city started to slowly install their own wayfinding signage. Several of the markers were removed at their discretion. So in the end, we are talking about 26 markers that are currently up in the bid. Secondly, we're talking also about wayfinding plaques and orientation columns. These are part of the Alliance's 2004 district-wide wayfinding system that has been up and around the district, for a very long time. I'm sure many of you have seen these. And in 2014, we agreed again. DOT was working towards creating more of a unified wayfinding system across the city, and we agreed to remove our own signage in other parts of the district, but we're allowed to keep a few of them along Broadway. And that was a larger number, but for right now we have 20 that remain along Broadway. And I want to emphasize, for this specific project, DOT is the agency liaison for this, and will be submitting the application to PDC in our behalf. I'm not sure if somebody from DOT is here tonight. I was told they may send a representative, but I just wanted to make sure we point that out to you. Next. So when I say, Heritage Trail markers and, orientation columns, this is what I'm talking about. We go from the orientation columns on the left that, I'm sure you have seen them at different locations along Broadway. The wayfinding plaques, again, at different places along the neighborhood. And of course, the Heritage Trail markers. These are two-sided panels, with one side having historical content on it with some images, and the other side having a wayfinding map. This map is one that DOT requires that we use their own map. We used to have our map up, but they wanted to create a uniform system, as I mentioned earlier, and the maps are ones that they provide to us. Next. So Here are this here's an image. This is the map of our bid district, the red line that sort of marks our bid. And then within the map, these are the locations that include the replacement of a total of 46 elements. This is what this project proposal includes. 26 of them, as I stated earlier, are the heritage trail markers. 15 of them are the wayfinding plaques that run along Broadway from DC to State, and then 5 orientation columns that run along Broadway from Wall to Bowling Green. I wanted to point out that in terms of the heritage trail markers, these are placed in the original locations determined by the Heritage Trail New York project from the 90s. And once that project ended, the city took over and dictated where the markers were allowed to remain in the district, in the city. To name a few, some of the locations, we're talking about Wall Street. There's one for the African Burial Ground, Foley Square, Francis Tavern, the Seaport, John Street Methodist Church, Hanover Square, the Battery, and U.S. Customs House. And as for the 15 and 5 orientation columns, the 20 that remain are, some of those examples are, as you saw from the image, Fulton Center, Bowling Green, Trinity Church, the sort of, oh, sorry, that's my puppy. Sort of the examples I shared before are the ones that are along Broadway. Next, I'm going to let Natalie sort of move on to the next slides.
Absolutely. As Tina mentioned, these markers are over 25 years old and thus have deteriorated and are showing significant signs of wear. They are iron signs. They've rusted significantly. The bases generally show the most erosion. And in these cases, the photos you see here, they led to instability and removal. Also, the maps and historical information are currently applied with a sticker decal. As you can imagine, these are susceptible to peeling off and are constantly being replaced and maintained and checked on. That photo there shows this. So the Alliance maintains over 1,300 pieces of street furniture or infrastructure assets in our district. And given the condition of these, we think it's time to take care of them and make them better and more attractive. If we don't take action and replace these signs, they will continue to deteriorate. And now I'll show you the new proposed engineer-approved heritage trail marker design. The structure is based on the original, and we wanted to keep the same look and feel as our original signs. They maintain a historic visual, and they're recognizable because they've been in the neighborhood for over 25 years. So some improvements do include that they are modular. They have the ability to replace the base so that as they become possibly damaged or show signs of wear, we could replace the base and not replace the entire sign. That goes the same for the top finials and the laminated panels. The laminated panels are getting an improvement as well. They will now be printed on a professional high pressure laminate material that is graffiti resistant, much easier to maintain, and will not peel off.
So yes, thank you. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Natalie. So next we sort of want to talk about the content on the markers. As part of this application process with the Public Design Commission, we are required to hire an engineer and a historian to review and approve all of the information that currently exists on the existing panels. So, we decided to, take it a step further. So we decided to work with a historian who also works with the museum to have access to its full range of experts to work on the project. So there's a team effort sort of working on the content. The lead historian is an internationally recognized expert in architecture and of social history in New York City. and who the museum that we're affiliated with for this project is Museum of City of New York, which was mentioned earlier in the presentation as well. As many of you know, the Museum of the City of New York sets a very high bar for inclusive history by presenting underrepresented histories of New York City through its exhibits and projects. So, for example, if you see on this slide, the update for 40 Wall Street is an example of one of the markers, one of the boards that would be updated. The historian, this is one that she has added new language from the original to include information about the actual original wall at Wall Street, at 40 Wall Street, that was built by slaves when the city was called New Amsterdam. So this is just one example of areas where the content would be updated and added to make it more inclusive. We're also going to change some of the images, possibly. The older images and the existing ones weren't as good a quality. Some of them have high, pixels, as they tell me. And so we're going to also use some of the images to take some of them out and select ones that will look better over time on the panels. Our goal with this is to ensure that the panels represent, of course, a more inclusive history of Lower Manhattan. Natalie?
I'm sorry to hear. And these are our new proposed design for the wayfinding plaques. As we mentioned earlier, these exist along Broadway. There's 15 of them. As you can see, the new design is very similar to the old, and it ties together a unified visual identity throughout the district. Similarly, the orientation columns, also very similar to the original design and would match the same aesthetic as our other signage. The eye is very visible and acts as an information icon to all viewers.
Thanks, Natalie. So, so in terms of next steps, this, between the heritage trail markers, the plaques, and the orientation columns, that is sort of the gist, so the bulk of what we are submitting to PDC. We plan to submit our application to PDC next month, wherein we would present the proposal to the PDC Commission in June, and hopefully be able to get approval for that application and be able to begin installing the new stanchions and the new plaques and orientation columns later this fall. We think this is sort of a really good tie-in as people start to return to the district, whether it's for work or residents coming back because school's back in session. We think this is sort of part of an overall initiative we are working towards to welcome people back to the neighborhood, and taking this opportunity to do it now with the street infrastructure that we're talking about today. So, obviously we're happy to take questions from the committee and from whoever. We would be seeking, as part of the application, we'd be seeking a resolution in support of this application, and sort of are here to sort of answer any questions people may have.
Okay, thank you, Taina and Natalie, for that presentation. And we will indeed start taking comments from the committee first and then from the public. Let's see, on the committee, do I see any hands raised? I do not. So let me move on to the public.
Paul,
Rose
and I are here.
I do see a couple now. Okay, so
just when I thought I was
start.
out, Paul. Just when I thought I was good, questions came. I'm just joking.
Well, their hands went up a little later than I saw, but in any event, they're here now. All right, let's start with Alice.
Thanks for the presentation. Can I ask how, who else besides, is GCP involved in this? Is it, I guess, how is the design done? What designers are you working with? who else is involved in the decision making in this process besides the one historian at the Museum of the City of New York?
You mean the design of the actual physical components?
Yes.
Right. So the heritage trail markers and the heritage trail markers, I guess, is a separate, not a separate, but it's a different infrastructure piece, because it was the one that was originally, erected from the 90s, and then we took ownership over it because nobody would, right? The city didn't want to. We didn't want we didn't want the markers to go sort of to be removed. So we decided that we wanted to take over the maintenance and the responsibility of them. So the marker, where the marker looks now was what was erected in the 90s, that the Alliance was not part of that process. We've tried to, so we ourselves have, and Natalie can also talk a little bit more, but hired a fabricator, a designer, an engineer to design a stanchion very close, and you'll see from the photos, maybe Natalie can go back to that photo, to be very close to what exists now. So it does not, it looks very close to what exists in the street now, because we wanted to keep it very close to what's on the street at this time.
Well, there's a lot of comments. I mean, I think it's great in some ways to have this ability to tell a history in some way on a city street so people can really better understand their communities. And it's tricky how to best do that. First of all, I would say this is a wonderful opportunity for a design competition to design this very base for these plaques. I think to simply resurrect the classicist design from the 1990s doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I think it's not a particularly great design. I'm shocked that it was originally done in iron. That's extraordinary, knowing that, of course, that would rust. But anyway, I just think this doesn't have anything to do with other street furniture in the city. And I would think that you would want to, and I don't know, has this been presented yet, for example, to the Department of City Planning, or for example, to the Municipal Arts Society, or the Van Allen Institute, or any of the, city architecture groups?
To that.
Sure,
no, it has not, but it has been presented to the NYC Department of Transportation. And a reasoning for keeping this same design is that, all along we've been imagining these as a replacement in kind, since they have become so worn down and in poor condition. And frankly, the first step was that they just need to be replaced. So with the NYC DOT's, in partnership with them and in a discussion, we were encouraged to keep it as a replacement in kind, and thus we kept this original historic design, which I think in a way does reflect the historic district of Lower Manhattan and it being the oldest neighborhood.
Well, again, I think that it's great that you're coming to the community. And again, I've mentioned this, I think, prior in other Alliance presentations, that it's always great to get the community's input in before it's finished. And so I'm delighted to see that we have an opportunity to opine, but I think this is a missed opportunity. This is a personal note. I'm an architect, but who cares? But anyway, I think it is a missed opportunity to not reconsider this design and allow designers in New York to look at this, because this is, a really great opportunity. So that would be one thing. And on the plaques themselves, in terms of the history that you are now exploring, things have, of course, changed over the years. And my concern is that having one historian from the Museum of the City of New York seems really, I'm delighted that that's happening, but I think you need a lot more input on what kind of history you're showing. Do we have additional plaques, and why, where they should go? There's a great interest in talking about history that we never hear about, particularly African-American history in these neighborhoods. All of these things that come up, I just think, I would hope that we could have a whole panel of people thinking about what the history is and what the verbiage on these plaques might say. So here again, I just think, it might be an opportunity for a little more input and a little more thought as to what and why things are going where they're going and why they're going there. And so anyway, that's just another thought that I'm sort of putting. I guess that's not a question. It's a concern and something that I'd like the committee to think about.
Sure.
I think I'll shut up for now. I can't promise I won't come back. Thanks.
Thanks, Alice. I just wanted to sort of comment a little, comment on your comment, and to say, as Natalie mentioned, for the purposes of this particular project, the ones that are out there are just falling apart, right? So for us, it's just really important to fix the ones that we have. Now we've, unfortunately, we've been very, very restricted into being able to add more markers in different parts of the district. To convey a broader program for this in other parts of the neighborhood, to include other historical references for other moments in history across including various perspectives. We've been limited to do that. We've wanted to add more, and we've been told that we can't. So
perhaps the plaques you have can though be adapted to so that they're covering different ground. Arguably you don't have to have the exact same information. That's another approach.
So we are, I guess what two things. One I would say is that we are, I could say that we are open to discussing with the community board and whoever is sort of interested in possibly doing something, I don't know, I don't want to give it a name, but like a phase 2, like what would that look like to do something different with these? This is not part of this application. And in terms of what we're expected to do, what we're required to do, we're following the Public Design Commission's process to update and upgrade these. So we are adhering to the process that has been sort of laid out for us. And the panel size is we're limited in terms of size, so we would be along with the museum and the historian in conjunction with other people at the Museum of City of New York to fit as much as we can into that one particular panel, contingent on where it's located. So in our mind, it's the content that's there relates to where the person is standing, right? And again, it serves the purpose of providing some historical information and also providing some, a map for people, which I know people seem to respond well to, use them, and we find them of good use.
I'll just add quickly that
Sure.
there is a lead historian appointed to this project, but they are able to work and are working with the full range of experts at the City Museum of New York to include additional information. We emphasize that we want to include additional information about underrepresented histories of Lower Manhattan, in particular Black history and queer history, of which this content has been added to panels where applicable. As Taina said, we're subject to the specific location. So on certain panels, new content and updated history has been added.
I guess it would be great to share this with the community board. For example, the city council has legislation in front of it on the Freedom Heritage Trail, or the Freedom Trail, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be included now on these plaques?
So, that Jimmy Van Bramer, I think the council member Van Bramer is sort of taking the lead in introducing that bill. We would be sort of very happy to sort of, potentially work on that. When I alluded to phase 2, that's sort of what I'm thinking about when it concerns something, doing something else or addition to what we already have. So we are definitely open to having that discussion. I'm not sure if that, if that bill, how long that would take to pass, where the money would come from. There are a lot of sort of moving parts to that. But something that we're definitely interested in potentially exploring, and we still, for us, it's important to do these first. I'm sorry, my light just turned off. To do these first, and then sort of figure out with the stakeholders and people who are interested in having a conversation about the future.
Okay, I'd like to give some other people an opportunity because we do have a lot of other speakers, so let's move it along. Thank you, Alice. Tammy.
Thanks, Taina. You mentioned that you were limited. It's limited in this phase. Could you explain how you're limited and why?
So the marker, the 26, in terms of the Heritage Trail markers, the 26 Heritage Trail markers, the location of where they exist now was determined and is approved by DOT. So we don't decide where they are. We don't decide where they can move. We can't get them moved to someplace else. We can't relocate them. We cannot add more. That is not something we're allowed to do. Our responsibility lies solely in maintaining and taking care of the ones that exist right now and the locations that they are currently.
Do you know if there was a public process associated with their determinations of where those should be at all?
I did, Natalie and I did a little research in the Heritage Trails New York project that I think was led by the Kaplan Fund, or, so when this was erected in the 90s as a project there was a total, I think, of 39 that was supposed to expand to other parts of New York City, and for whatever reason, it didn't. So we don't have, I don't have the, exact history for you today, but I can definitely send that to you and the rest of the board to sort of provide you some further information about that.
That would be great. Do you know if there's any connection between the Heritage Trail markers that you are doing and the Heritage Trail markers that are on the Greenway connected to
on the what? I'm sorry?
On the Greenway that connects with the bike path?
Oh, Natalie, do you know the answer to that question?
Well, I wish I could see the signs you're referring to. Do they have the same type of stanchion as these?
No. They're new, which is why I was asking. I'll take
well, I would assume no, because I just
because we don't know about them, right?
Don't know this type of sign.
Got it.
I mean,
Thank you.
I do know, I will say just anecdotally, I do know there are other, in other parts of the state, similar looking stanchions that, mark different places for actual trails that people walk, in, hikes in different places throughout the state. So I don't know the one I don't specifically know about that one, but we can look into it as well and get back to you. We'll add it to the list for follow-up, Natalie.
Thank you both very much.
Sure.
Okay, Rosa, why don't you go next?
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. I have to say, I love the Heritage Trail markers. I frequently see tourists reading them. And whenever I have a moment, when I'm not in a rush, I like to read them and learn little things about the city that I never knew before. So I'm really happy that you are maintaining and updating them. Just graphically, I feel like the eye for information seems like really universally recognizable and much larger when it's within that bright red circle rather than going to the square. And I get why you're going to the square because it works better with your logo, but then the eye gets reduced in size and it's a little bit less visible. And I feel like the city is such a dense environment to begin with. Anything that helps people understand that there's information that they might need there help is a good thing. I also think that the photos are really important as well, because I think a lot of the target audience is tourists. And for a lot of them, English may not be their first language. And also because the writing is sort of necessarily small because of the density of information you're trying to relay in these small signs. A photo just pops out, right? Oh, Brooklyn Bridge, that's where I'm going, or this, the stock has changed, that's where I'm going. And they recognize that from their, guidebooks, rather than having to read the words and try to figure out if that's where they want to be. So I guess I just want to say I'm excited that you guys are doing this. I understand from the comments that you've made so far that this is really more of a maintenance project than it is a rethinking or expanding of it. But I really do hope that you do rethink and expand it, because I feel like it is it's a really cool thing for New Yorkers to just take a moment and read and learn a little bit about the city that we walk on and sort of the history of our neighborhood, which is incredibly rich. So it's a great opportunity for both us, but also for the tourists that come here. And so, yeah, I like it. But I do hope you do more, because it is a little bit of a lost opportunity, especially this year. With everything that's been going on, I know that I have personally been learning a hell of a lot about the history in this neighborhood, and especially the Black history in this neighborhood that I was not aware of before. And I feel like that's a really important thing that that does need to be memorialized here in our neighborhood. And so I really do hope that there is some opportunity to do that and to sort of respect what has happened in the past, which is, you know, part of what this is all about. So thank you, keep doing it. And I guess we now see all the damage that comes from dog urine that's on the bottom of those poles.
Thank you, Rosa, for your comments. We will sort of bring them back, but I appreciate your support.
Thank you. Oh, and I like the old arrows too. They seem to just be clearer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, let's keep going. Michael Kramer, did you have your hand up for this item?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
My question is about rebranding. To me, this is Lower Manhattan. It's not downtown. And there are some places, you know, where you're changing the title to explore downtown instead of exploring Lower Manhattan. What is the thought behind that?
I'm sorry, my phone was, okay. Well, I mean, they're on the actual markers? Is that what you're saying, that that this appears on the markers?
I thought I saw, at least on some of the signs, that you're changing the title, exploring Lower Manhattan, to explore downtown. Did I miss something?
Natalie, was that, I didn't,
I don't think we're using that language. And my understanding is the Alliance, we always refer to our district as Lower Manhattan. I know.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, I'm constantly saying Lower Manhattan. We don't say downtown. Downtown could be anywhere, right? Downtown is all part of that. You know, people say downtown for, you know, 23rd Street. So we've always tried to be very specific and, you know, and reference it as Lower Manhattan. So I will go back to the presentation, but I don't think that was the case, but I can double check.
I mean, that was my point.
Yeah.
And the other question I have is, if you use, I don't know what the right word is, where you can scan it with your phone, and then you can get even more information. Have you considered putting that on there?
We have considered using a QR code.
QR code, thank you.
It's, I'll say there's no resolution on this right now, but possibly as a phase 2 in hopes to, you know, really move these signs along and get these replaced, because I think if we do include a QR code, which would link to an online source of more information about the district and Lower Manhattan in general, it would be sort of a larger project than what it is now. And we are definitely open to that in the future.
I mean, especially for tourists, you know, they can consult their phone as they're walking.
And I think especially now with QR codes as it relates to, you know, sort of the new normal with, you know, post-COVID or during COVID and with COVID, QR codes became so much more used by people in restaurants and other places. So I think the adaptability to include that, I think, is important for us to go back to and revisit. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for raising it, Michael.
But while you're talking, because Michael mentioned something that I wanted to point out, there is branding issues on the signage when it comes to the historic district, because much of the dialogue that the Downtown Alliance has on the website and other things do not refer to it absolutely correctly. So if you could go back to the historic proper wording on the signage, that would be great.
On the markers themselves, you mean? I just want to be clear, I understand which, in terms of the Heritage Trail markers or in terms of the other signage on Broadway, just to be clear.
I think the answer would be on all signage.
Oh, okay.
Because it's not just the Seaport District. It's got a full historic name that should be titled and used.
I see now what you're saying. Okay. Thank you. Yes, noted.
Okay, thank you. And
Well,
Alice, you had one more comment?
yeah, I do. I'm sorry. This is very dear to me to see street furniture like this, you know, just kind of happening. You know, let me understand something. This is not maintenance. This is recreating the posts and the sign. Is that correct? I think maybe people are unclear. This is not about maintaining what's there. Is it? Or maybe I misunderstood. You're you're not making new ones, aren't you? Are you not making new ones and putting new signs in, or is that not what's happening?
We have, since we took this over in 2000, and Natalie can add more, specific information. Since we took it over in 2000, we have been repairing them and fixing the existing ones over time. And we've reached a point that we can no longer do that, right?
So you're creating 26 new signs. And
correct. That is correct.
So these are absolutely new. And what does each one of these cost approximately? Do you know?
Natalie?
I wish I had that unit cost for you. Would it be okay?
Ballpark? Must have a sense of it. I'm just curious.
Sure. Give me one moment.
My point here, just while you're looking for that, is I think that the committee and the community board should recognize, I don't see a second phase here. This is it. I mean, I think you're going to have this for a very long time. These are brand new and very lovely that you're, helping fund this, I assume. Signs with the aesthetic remains the same. That's quite old. And it is an opportunity to have street furniture that is different and that designers could compete for consideration of new street furniture, which is often what is done in cities throughout the world. And here we're just inheriting the same one. So I just want to make sure people understand it's not maintaining or fixing ones that are there. We're creating new ones. And I think it's, for me, I'll say again, a lost opportunity not to open up other possible designs before you make these. And additionally, I just want to talk about the signs and stuff. So I don't know if you can pull up the presentation again. I don't want to spend a lot more time, but on a couple of the signs, the Downtown Alliance did not appear. I can't remember the informational name of what's the information sign. And in the existing signs, your logo and your name does not appear, but in the new ones it does. And I think less of advertising for the Alliance is, frankly, better. I think this is New York City, not the Alliance. And so I personally think that particular sign, if you can pull up that array, or if not, maybe you'll know what I'm talking about. I would vote for that not to change, as you indicated in one of these. And maybe I got it wrong. So it's not this one.
So not this one. So this one has a logo on the existing, and so okay.
Right, they both have logos, but here, yeah, you have the existing and there's no logo, but here on the updated version,
the wayfinding
you do have it. And I'm just feeling like, we appreciate what the Alliance does for downtown and all of that, but do we really need to add the logo there? I think it was actually quite handsome without it, and so I'm not sure what we need that for. So I would just throw that out there. Anyway, sorry. So were you able to find the cost of each one of these?
I did. I found the cost, and it's approximately $3,500 per unit to fabricate the entire new sign. I'd just like to add to your point, about not doing a phase 2. I think we are spending a budget to replace the stanchions, but the panels themselves are interchangeable. They would be replaced throughout the years for maintenance issues, and especially if we did do a phase 2 with expanded content.
I'm talking about the stanchions, sorry.
Okay.
I was talking about the stanchions, yeah.
Understood.
Right. So that, I just think that was a great opportunity lost potentially. So it's not too late. I throw that out there. Okay, that's it, Paul. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's try to keep it going. Try to keep your remarks as brief as you can, because we have a number of speakers and we still have 2 big items to discuss after this one. So, Richard Corman.
Yes, hi, thanks. Appreciate the presentation and what you're doing. I just want to extend my first support for what Alice is saying, but I'd like to clarify just to be clear, where the funds are coming from this. Is this purely coming from the Downtown Alliance?
The
or
funds
is there another source of funds?
This is purely coming from the Downtown Alliance.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
That's it? Okay, in that case, I think, Joe Lerner. Oh, wait, who's next? Who is that?
After Joe, can I come back for another question?
Okay, Joe, you go. And
Can you
yet,
hear me?
yeah, we hear you, Joe.
Okay. So Alice, are you going to make a motion on your thoughts about the naming?
I'm
We're
sorry,
not,
Joe. I don't
we're not
understand.
ready for that just yet. There's a lot of speakers still, so why don't we wait to hear from them before we talk about making a motion, in my opinion.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Tammy.
Two things. One, the signs definitely are rebranding. So if you pull up the sign comparison of the skyscrapers that you had. And two, Taina, one of the concerns that I want to ask and be very clear, the Downtown Alliance has a customer base. The signs that have existing and look at additional areas may be places that are not necessarily under the Downtown Alliance control. Would your funding of these signs therefore eliminate places that might not be within your direct pay or purview because you're funding the program?
So the existing, so if I am understanding your question correctly, the existing 26 that exists right now, there are a few, maybe 2 or 3 out of the 26 that are outside of the bid, and those are included. So we are going to replace those, and we currently maintain those now. If we were to do, petition or, go to the city or DOT to possibly do additional stanchion or additional markers in other parts of the bid, it would be within the bid because that's the area under which DOT would allow us to do it because that's sort of our purview. So if they were going to, be markers in Tribeca, for example, that's not within our bid, that would be something that we would not be able to do.
But my question was, if you take a look at your presentation, the signs definitely say exploring Lower Manhattan versus exploring downtown. And then if you also look at the old sign that has, also in this neighborhood, there are other locations. If those locations are not fiscal supporters of the Downtown Alliance, does that disqualify them from being listed on the sign?
No.
Thank you. And I know there's members of the public, so I'm going to let them go.
And I'm looking at the presentation. I see on the existing, it says exploring Lower Manhattan. So I just want to be sure I'm not, on the other one it says exploring Lower Manhattan.
Somebody found one on the 40 Wall Street one. That's
I
it.
see. Okay. I just want to be clear. I know. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Okay, let's go with some public speakers. Todd Fine, and unmute. Thank you.
Yes. Hello. Yes, working with the Harlem Historical Society, the Washington Street Advocacy Group authored a brief detailing 10 reasons to rethink this Heritage Trail initiative. We urge all members to look at this brief, which I believe was distributed to all members of the committee. We believe that this project is not consistent with everything happening in society, forcing a larger encounter with history. It is very nakedly an attempt to put the most recent Downtown Alliance branding with a red stripe on signs that may last for 25 years. This signage network is an incomplete descendant of projects from the bicentennial in 1976 and the mid-90s. Almost half of those signs have been demolished, and only the arbitrary surviving signs will be updated as a part of this project. The drafting of these signs does not appear to be driven by experts or properly vetted. One anonymous historian is not qualified to address all these complex historical locations with updated material. We believe that this moment calls for a broader plan, listening to more voices. This would have a social benefit and economic benefit for tourism. We would like any resolution to oppose PDC approval and state that the Downtown Alliance worked with Community Board 1 to establish a new task force working with educational institutions in the city and a diversity of civic groups to assess how the Heritage Trail Network could be updated. Rewriting all the signs makes it go beyond maintenance, and it is unfair to describe this as maintenance. Even the Alliance concedes that DOT has put unreasonable restrictions on this, preventing it from being done properly and comprehensively. Once you approve this with its sole focus on Downtown Alliance branding, a phase 2 might never fit within the plan. We should start from scratch. Thank you.
Okay, let's keep the comments going. And all right, Taylor Banning.
Hi, thank you. I'm Taylor Banning. I live in Battery Park City. And would Todd be willing to put info in the chat so we could learn more about, I'm not a member of the board, so I didn't get access to this article. And I think he mentioned he's a part of Harlem Fund, and I don't remember his full name. So is there a way to learn a little bit more about Todd? And then my comment is, thank you to the board members who spoke. Thank you for the presentation. I think in many ways I agree with Todd. I agree with Michael, Alice, and Rosa. The first note about the QR codes, I know Black Gotham, who was actually presented at this committee before, has walking tours, and I think it's able to be put in a QR code type thing. So there could be a way to incorporate the work that they do. Also, the African Burial Ground has plenty of information and history that can be incorporated and maybe partnered with. And I guess in that same vein, you know, I agree with many people who have spoken and Todd that maybe there's a way that we can really take time and really hear from many voices, especially Black, Indigenous, people of color, even queer voices, to really make these signs reckon with our history. I grew up here. I was born in the 90s. I don't remember any of these signs. I don't remember learning something from these signs so far, sadly. I do remember sometimes looking at them for like directions every now and then, but in terms of picking up on a piece of history that maybe expanded my knowledge of as someone said, the oldest neighborhood of New York City. We have a lot to do here to learn and teach our kids about and really make this an equitable space. So yeah, I guess I agree that maybe as is, we shouldn't necessarily support this, and there's a little bit more work and collaboration to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Malvern.
Hi. Can you hear me? Did I get unmuted? Okay,
Yes.
cool. Hey, wanted to say first I had a question. Because the Alliance does, you know, there are clients and that sort of thing. Would a business have an opportunity to be able to sort of sponsor one of the signs? That's a question.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Through the Downtown Alliance, and if a business nearby knew there was one of these wayfaring plaques in their vicinity, would businesses be able to sponsor a specific sign and maybe have their name put on it? Or is that a way to like maybe take care of some of the costs, that sort of thing? I'm just curious if there's a way for businesses to sponsor the signs within the Alliance.
I could answer that.
Sure, thank you.
The answer is no. We are only providing information about, you know, not-for-profit organizations on the signs. Nothing about them is to promote for-profit businesses, but rather to represent the history and cultural institutions in the neighborhood.
Cool, thank you for that. And also I agree with Rose's point about the wayfaring signs specifically. I think the pictures are much more impactful than the words. I walk by words all the time and I don't see them. Pictures speak to me. So in the wayfaring signs, I really prefer the old design as far as pictures of what's going to catch someone's eye and what they're looking for when they're a tourist. And then also, I just wanted to say that in the past, in the CB1 committees I've been to, generally a resolution is very specific to the details of a project. LPC doesn't just approve the idea of LPC within Community Board 1 doesn't just approve the idea of a building. And I feel like that's kind of what's being asked of the board. And I don't know if that's particularly fair. I think that the board should be presented with a complete package so they can look at wording, at pictures, and have that sort of input. So based on that alone, I would suggest that the board does not approve this proposal. But thanks for your time, and they do need attention, and I know this is a hard thing to get a hold of, but I'm excited about it, and I hope that it can come out in a great way.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Megan. Jacob Morris.
Am I hearable?
Yes, we got you.
Oh, good, good. I don't know if my video is up, but okay. I'm the director of the Harlem Historical Society and also the proposer for a long, long time of the New York City Freedom Trail. The legislation just recently cleared the Cultural Affairs Committee to establish a task force to establish a freedom trail in downtown Manhattan. And this is pursuant to a resolution that unanimously passed Community Board 1 way back in 2012. God bless Community Board 1 for doing that. I want to say unequivocally that this proposal by the Downtown Alliance needs to be tabled pending further submission. I would like to particularly thank Michael Kramer and the last lady who spoke for their critique and comments. Any signage that is newly designed and installed in downtown Manhattan should absolutely include a QR code. I mean, we are in the present. We are not in the past. These QR codes would add a tremendous informational dimension to these wayfinding, critically important to the history and the awareness and consciousness of all the historical significance of any of these sites. And you know, in regards to the comment made by the last speaker, she's absolutely correct. The board is owed a full submission, not a concept. And so also, you know, something that troubles me is that originally, in the original designs, there was a bunch of collaborators that were mentioned at the bottom of their respective signs. Important organizations that were equally responsible for the initial signage. And they've been obliterated. And on that basis alone, the Downtown Alliance needs to go back to the table and include them because they were part of the initial concept. And so it's incredibly disrespectful to the original organizations that participated in the original concept and design and content. All of the Heritage Trail to be included in the attribution. In regards to that, they got one anonymous historian from the Museum of the City in New York to vet the content. That's absolutely inadequate. There's so much new scholarship that needs to be incorporated. And frankly, I think that more diverse and universally appreciated historians with expertise in the history of downtown Manhattan needs to be included in an advisory task force to help the Downtown Alliance do this better. Again, please table this proposal. Thank you.
Okay. I would ask the remaining speakers, if you agree with some comments that you heard, just leave it at that or say that rather than repeating the same comments that we've heard a few times already. So with that, let's go on to some people who I know are looking to be heard. Art Piccolo.
Hi, am I on?
You are.
Yeah, I wanted to just repeat what a lot of other speakers said. This is should be an ambitious project. This is an opportunity for us to do better and more imaginative. And the idea of approving this proposal at this point, as many other speakers said, make no sense. This is serious. We should take it serious, and it should get the kind of attention, including benchmarking it against what other cities are doing with their historic markers, finding out what are the best examples around the world and try to work off of them. Also, although not necessary, I think we should consider the possibility, especially if other cities are doing it, the possibility of electronic signage that can be very imaginative and can include a lot more information on a rotating basis. Thank you.
Okay, Linda Roche.
Thank you. So I agree with just about everything everybody has said, but I do have two comments. One is, and I'm going back to the Seaport area. The Seaport area has to have the word historic in it, even if Howard Hughes Corporation doesn't want it there. It really does need to be there because it is the historic district. The other item I just wanted to make mention of this. Alice has thought of doing a competition, and I think that would really be a good idea and bring some fresh new ideas to the table. So, and table this for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to the committee. Mark Amoruso.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I agree with most of everyone said. There's a speaker before, I forgot his name, from the public. And I think we should table this.
All right.
I think a little more research with a star, starians, to get the kind of things right or things that should be there. I'll just give a plug to Peter Alberti, who was first Italian to land in New York State. He has a marker at Battery Place. Things like that, and everyone has knows their own knowledge of what should be there. So to table it and get back to basics.
All right. You know what? At this stage, I'm going to ask the committee. We're hearing a lot of consensus on having misgivings about this particular application and wanting it to be changed or tabled. Is there consensus to ask for that at this stage and then reconvene to, what do you want to do?
Paul, I think the question for the applicant is what their timeline is, because I believe they need a resolution. So it's not about tabling the proposal. It's about providing a resolution that provides guidance for them, whether or not it's going to be approved, whether the community supports it as such or wants changes.
All right.
To that extent, I'd like to understand what's driving the urgency for this proposal. Why is it being pushed so quickly?
Yeah, and Tammy, based on what you said, isn't it up to the applicant if they want to put their application on hold if they so chose?
Go ahead, Diana.
No, thank you, Tammy, for your comment. So I would, we would not want it to be tabled. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is if the committee wanted to, put together a resolution, laying out or indicating, the recommendations or the suggestions that have been heard today in a resolution, that's something that, we would prefer. We would like to continue sort of moving on track with this application. It is our intention for it to continue going forward. I mean, we feel really strongly that there is nobody, in terms of looking at these markers and, updating them or replacing them, the ones that are just, literally falling apart. I mean, we can show more examples of how they look on the street. We feel that we are trying to, make a good effort in working to get them replaced or to improve the ones that are there. I mean, the actual physicality of the stanchions. So, I mean, obviously, a lot of people here have raised a lot of concerns that, that will, consider looking at or addressing. The idea of the QR code is sort of very interesting and important, and we think we should definitely look into that, Natalie. And I will say about our branding, I mean, we've changed our logo once in 25 years. I mean, I know the branding that we have now, or the logo that we have, is a bar that is pretty simple, and it's a design element that is supposed to imply like everything south, or everything, you know, south of the bar or below the bar is sort of considered our district in Lower Manhattan. So I would, you know, push back a little bit on the fact that, you know, that there is this sort of sentiment or belief among certain people, or people who've been here tonight, that we are sort of over branding ourselves. I would not agree with that. I also wanted to just mention that we have worked extensively with Kamau Ware of the Black Gotham Experience. We have had a lot of partnerships with him. He has led walking tours. He has led webinars on the history of the Black diaspora, the African diaspora rather, in Lower Manhattan. And we've also produced, you know, documentation and videos and collateral on the LGBT community in Lower Manhattan and the history of that. So I just want to sort of, we're not trying to do something that is disingenuous or to leave, you know, to leave people out. You know, we sort of have made we believe, a fair project to, like, literally just replace what's there with something that is, you know, not broken or not rusted and not deteriorated. This is, you know, we're not trying to, you know, circumvent or go against people, or to try and, you know, do something that's misleading. So I'm, you know, to be honest, I feel that, you know, I was, you know, I guess, you know, sad to hear that people feel that we're trying to, like, you know, like we're trying to take over the neighborhood, or we're trying to, like, have our name splashed everywhere. That's not our intention here at all. And I think if there's nobody stepping up to replace these. I mean, the fact that the ones that we have there are only there because we pushed and pushed and pushed DOT to keep them. They want to take them all out. So, and if it was up to them, they would. You know, if it wasn't for us, they would not be there, and there would be nobody putting them in there. This is not something the city wants. Maybe with a new administration, it'd be very different when we have a new mayor in January. So, you know, I don't know. But anyway, so I mean, I would sort of leave it to you, Paul, to decide how you want to proceed. I would, you know, I think we don't want to table this. We want to continue to move forward and see what PDC says, right? PDC will be looking at all this information and reviewing the application that we submit, and it'll be sort of up to them to decide what they, you know, how they feel about that. And of course, the community board can weigh in there as well.
Can I just ask one question, Paul, or to Taina? I just want to know, does the city have no plan to have any kind of signage indicating any of the history of the city? There is no such thing that exists?
That is our understanding, correct, yes.
I think we should get more information on
there
that.
There was actually previous commissioners of DOT, you know, and previous administration have different views upon this, but there is no current plan. There is no plan for in the future to have that. So we are trying, you know, our very best to maintain, you know, actual living markers in the district for people to use, you know, to serve that purpose. So
I just think that requires more conversation, and I think it's something the community board should really pursue. I mean, these are basically billboards on a public street. Let's not forget, this is signage on a public street, and so I hope that, you know, we can have a little bit more say on it. Anyway, thanks.
All right. So I guess we have the usual options. We could say yes with certain conditions. The second phase, we want a lot of things taken care of.
Okay.
If you want to see
Well,
any
I'm
of it,
in a meeting.
If you want to see,
Yes.
Let me mute Joe's line. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Okay, so that's one option, to say yes, but we have a lot of concerns and we want a phase two. Okay. Number two, we could say no, there's just too many flaws in this and we want them to come back and work with the community to redesign. That was the essence of, I think, the majority of the people saying no.
Paul, can I just interject one moment? I'm sorry, really quickly. I just noticed on the names here, the windows of the meeting. I see Jen Leung here from DOT, and I just noticed that she's here. I'm not sure if she can hear me, but you know, if she wanted to weigh in here at all, Jen, about this and what DOC's position is on these markers as a co-applicant, I welcome that.
Hi, this is Jen here. I'm here just to listen to this presentation and see, you know, where we end up with it. I don't know, maybe Nick, he's also on with us. If there's anything else that we can let the board know.
Hi, yeah, this is Nick Fentnati from New York City DOT. Again, I think, you know, we are ultimately the applicant that will be submitting this to the Design Commission on the Downtown Alliance's behalf. I think we have been collaborating closely with them, primarily under the premise that this is a replacement in kind project. Obviously, I think we understand and are very sympathetic to the safety concerns that deteriorating signs pose to the general public, and are definitely supportive of their replacement. You know, I think we're happy to entertain larger or more ambitious proposals, but we would certainly need to understand what that is specifically. But yeah, so again, I think you know, we've been working very closely with the Alliance. We are supportive of the proposal as it stands, and are happy to continue to work with the Alliance and the Community Board should it evolve.
Thank you. Andrew, my co-chair, why don't you weigh in on this? You have any recommendation?
I have a thought, but before, I guess, sharing that, do we have a view that this larger plan or strategy or vision would even fall under the auspices of the Downtown Alliance? To me, it sounds like it would be other authorities, whether it's DOT or other agencies. So I'm not sure, as it relates to this grand vision or scheme that we're asking for, what the Alliance's role would be in something like that. And I ask that question because it does dovetail to, I guess, my own personal thought, which is, if you've seen some of these, they absolutely need to be fixed, whether replaced or repaired, I don't know. But it's kind of embarrassing that we have these signs in the current condition that they're in, and to let them just continue to sit, I think is short-sighted. So I think there's an interim step that can be taken while we still advocate for a broader vision or scheme as it relates to an overall program.
All right, let me suggest that we put something like that to a vote, see if it gets approved, and if it doesn't, then we'll go to a different plan.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the grand vision here, Paul, and I don't understand Andrew's point of a grand vision. The vision is simply to take the opportunity of replacing and creating a new signs at a tune of about $100,000, which is a lot of money for the Alliance to spend, and get them right, get them done so that they do respond to the history that is of today, that they do potentially respond to the architecture and the city street in a different way than 30 years ago. This is a great opportunity, and it's great that we have that. There's no grand vision here other than to take this opportunity, which is replacing these things, not maintaining them, and they're going to be replaced, and getting it in a different way that responds to the concerns that have been addressed here tonight. So to me, it's a, you know, let's keep moving forward with this very, you know, fair idea. I don't see where this, you know, I don't see that as a complicated concept.
Yeah, I guess what I meant by, I understand what you're saying. I think there were many comments that were considerably far-reaching beyond what you just said. You know, we heard about electric signs, we heard about QR codes, we heard about, I think, a number of different technologies. So I think it extends, or at least what I heard, and maybe I heard it incorrectly, a lot of the commentary extended well beyond, I think, what you just articulated.
Paul, if we're going to do it, let's do it right. And it seems to me the current way of doing it is not right or correct. We should hold off, give our either, I think we best should table it, put our minds together and come back with something better that we have. If we're going to do it, let's do it right.
Paul, do you have a point of information, Paul?
Yeah.
Question. So, it seems like the applicant, and tell me if I'm wrong, if we table it, doesn't seem, I mean, these signs and the signs that are there now are not going to fall down a month from now. So, tabling it, it seems like they're going to go forward. So I think, unfortunately, since they seem to go forward and don't think we should table it and just are kind of tacitly saying we're taking what we're saying under consideration, and there's a pretty big consensus here, I think, with everyone. I think we should just outright reject it and ask them to come back. That would be my proposal, and that would be the end of it.
Well, can I just suggest, Paul, that we use all these comments that were really thoughtful tonight to just move this forward as a, as the resolution simply stating what we would like to see with the wayfinding signs going forward so that the Public Design Commission understands that the community wants to, go forward and go forward in a certain way, in the ways that we've described tonight.
But what's the rush? What is the rush here?
Well,
I'm very much concerned about this, and we're not getting answers. I think we need to have a follow-up with them. Moving forward doesn't really help me at all about how this is going to work out. So,
Mark, I just want to point out, just as a note, that we had to, one almost was practically falling down in February, and we had to remove it, and it almost fell, it basically almost fell onto the street. So just in terms of like timing, we did this, 2 months ago.
Okay, let's wrap this up one way or the other.
Can I
propose the resolution about rejecting it and asking them to come back? If there's a second, I don't know.
Mark, you interrupted me, but that's okay. I was going to make a counter proposal, is that Paul takes a straw poll to start with, or Diana does, to figure out which way to go.
Yeah, that was where I was heading about 20 minutes ago, but let's do it now. Yes with conditions, or no, let's table it. So how many go for option one?
But there's a third option, rejecting it.
Isn't there no with conditions?
Isn't there a no with conditions, which is exactly what Alice is proposing?
All right, let's start with this. Do you want to vote yes or no? And then we could add the conditions to either one. Okay. So how many want to vote yes and then put in a whole range of conditions?
Paul, how do you want us to show this, Paul?
What's that?
Can we just say it
How do
by
you want us to vote?
Why don't I
Janice,
just, I'm just going to go through a roll call.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Paul?
I vote no at this point.
Andrew Zelter?
I'm yes with conditions.
Mark Amoruso?
I'm a no with that. We're asking them to return back with new designs or whatever based on our comments.
Okay. Alice Blank?
No with conditions.
Rosa Chang?
Yes with conditions.
Wendy Chapman?
Yes with conditions.
Kathy Gupta? Okay. Liz Lemire? I'm sorry, Kathy, was it you? Okay. Elizabeth Lewinson? Joe Lerner?
No.
Dennis is not here. Bob Townley is not here. Richard Corman?
No with conditions.
Okay. And David Sheldon? Okay. Let's see.
He needs to unmute if he wants to vote.
No with conditions.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let me count these. The no's are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 no's, and 1, 2, 3 yeses.
All right. So what conditions would, I've heard a number of conditions, QR codes, design competitions, those seem pretty straightforward. What else?
Additional historic.
Consult historians. I mean, I gave just one example of something that's, it's not just recent history, it's the beginning of history.
Okay, that's a good one, fine. I mean, we'll put this to a vote, of course. Anyone else?
Keep using the word Lower Manhattan.
Okay,
Make sure the sign's
Pictures.
Downtown Alliance is not added into the existing sign, and that the advertising of the Alliance is minimalized.
Use of electronic signage.
Keeping the images. Yeah, I would second lots of images.
And Paul, that they return with a new or updated proposal based on our comments.
Who is they?
The pretty people that are giving their presentation at the moment.
both the Alliance and DOT, I would say.
Yeah, they're the ones who spoke. Is there anyone else that I missed? I don't know. Tell me. Or is that's it?
Those cover the applicants.
And that the next presentation or the future presentations include precise locations and what exactly each plaque is covering. There are only 26 of them. It seems like something we could look at.
All right, Diana, you're writing quickly, right?
Yeah, I think I have everything.
Okay, so are you ready to put the package to a vote? Let's do it.
Did Todd Fine or the other historian have any other interesting conditions? Anyone can remember?
Paul, do you want me to call back to Todd? It says Freedom Trail Incorporation. Do you want me to go back to Todd?
Yeah, let's just get it. They had some good ideas, both of them.
Hi, Todd.
Hi, yes. I would like to add that the Freedom Trail be considered, how it would be fit within this potential network, and that there be explicit instructions on that. And I think the historian's point covers my main other concerns, but I definitely think that that should be fleshed out to the point where we have a committee of clear historians of diverse backgrounds who can verify these sites.
And when we talk about historians, do we think that covers all the different groups that have been mentioned? I know, I think there was mention of the LGBT community. When we talk about historians, are we talking about the full context of groups that were referenced?
I would say of the variety of issues, especially including issues that haven't been dealt with so far, that could potentially be done in phase 2 as well.
May I make a suggestion that I don't know if we need the word verified for historians versus varied to be inclusive. Because verified indicates that the historians perhaps from the New York Historical Society are not verifiable. But I think we could use variety or inclusive.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are we ready?
Paul, I think we have 2 folks from the public who may have recommendations on conditions. May I call to them?
Give them each 1 minute, please.
Okay, Taylor, I'm going to you first.
It's really short. Just maybe they partner with Black Gotham and African Burial Ground on the signs, and maybe with the QR codes, which you could easily make into like a sticker or a magnet and put on them. It shouldn't be that hard to adapt. Thank you. with walking tours.
Taylor, because Black Gotham is a for-profit company, we cannot, the applicants already said they're not putting for-profit companies on. It's not for profits, so I appreciate that, but that part cannot be part of it.
Okay, who else do we have?
And we have Jacob Morris. Jacob, do you have any specific recommendations for conditions in the resolution?
I really want to thank the community board and the members of the committee for their very insightful contributions and analysis of the proposal. And I think this is moving in the right direction. And you know, the inclusion of varied historians with expertise and knowledge of the history of Lower Manhattan will be only an asset and help provide a context for new interpretation of the history that's been presented. And they bring it back in a better way. The QR codes, on the QR codes, there'll be a lot of electronic information that'll be accessible, and that needs to be vetted also. So I'm going to go back to what Alice said, and several other of the committee members when they spoke. Bring it back the right way, and we'll get a much better quality product. And in terms of the rush, you know, waiting a month or two after more than a decade, I don't think that's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Okay, Paul.
Okay, so let's put this to a vote. Could you take a roll call?
Yep. Paul Goldstein.
Yes.
Andrew Zelter.
Abstain?
Mark Amoruso.
Yes.
Alice Blank.
Yes.
Rosa Chang.
Sorry, I'm still thinking.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Rosa. Wendy Chapman.
I'm going to abstain.
Kathy Gupta.
Yes.
Liz Lemire is not here. Elizabeth Lewinson. Joe Lerner.
Yes, yes.
Okay, Dennis is not here. Bob Townley is not here. Richard Corman.
Yes.
And David Sheldon.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Oh, I'm sorry. Rosa?
I'll go with abstain, even though that won't matter.
Okay, it still carries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in favor, 3 abstaining.
Thank you all. Thank you, Downtown Alliance, for a lot of time. And maybe we could still get this mutually acceptable. Anyway, thank you both.